Good day, Facebook friends. Um, with me, I have one of the strongest Vincentian women in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, And today she's picking up a different role. She's going to be more of a reporter to us because we know Luzette to be so much things. I know her as a trained nurse and as a lawyer too. I don't know about saying practicing lawyer, but for sure she's qualified to be a lawyer because she has an LLB for sure. And well, we know what is happening in the courts. Really not a court, really. It's the building, it's the NIS, and that's the petitions. And a lot of people like to know what's going on with the petitions so far. People are, especially diaspora, some of them so desperate they're calling me at some weird hours in the morning, like 2, 3 o'clock, how nervous they are. So Luzette, good day Luzette, I'd like you to bring the people up to speed of what is happening in the petition case in the NIS building.
Well, hi everybody. I often don't like to talk about my qualifications, so to speak, so I hope nobody asks me any more questions about it. But yes, the hearing of the 2015 election petition started last Monday the 11th after a drawn out, what we would call an interlocutory um, period, which means during that period, you would try to prepare for what happened, what started on Monday. And we can safely say that this interlocutory period lasted from about 2015 to now, which includes an appeal in 2017, June. So even that, they talk about expeditiously when the judges, the three-panel judge asked for the matter to be dealt with. So I want people to not, anything I say here, I don't want you to say that implying that we lost the case or we winning the case. I don't want that at all. It's too early in the day yet. The petitioners, Ben Exeter and Lauren Batiste, they have rested their case, meaning they've submitted all the evidence by way of, the witnesses on the stand who had to withstand a set of cross-questioning. Before we go to the process though, I want to make a comment on the facility. It's causing a lot of problems to the public, especially. The room is cold. I would love to take my hat off, but the last time they asked me to take it off, I protested on the basis that the room was too cold. There isn't even a clock on the wall, so people are relying on their own timepieces, which is not favorable. In addition, it's congested. It's not as open as the courtroom that we have downtown. So why they're doing this, I don't know. The other disadvantage for members of the public is that it's a quiet place, the NIS building, very quiet, except for, tourists and what have you. So some people, even if they hear that the petition is being heard there, they would come, and because they see nobody outside waiting, they don't quite know that they should come in because we're on the 3rd floor. So these are things that would necessarily affect the participation, if you will, of members of the public as, what's the word I want to use? Just listening to what's going on. So let's go to the process now. As I say, we started on Monday, and the justice, the judge that is listening to this petition hearing is Justice Stanley John. I understand he's a retired judge himself, and the OECS commissioned him to come and finish this election hearing for us. It looks as if it's going to take about 3 weeks, but after that, I don't know how long it will take for him to get his judgment together. I want to make some general comments. During the, well, naturally, Ben Exeter's case, it is 202 of 2015 in the civil court, meaning it was the 202nd case that was filed in 2015, and that's not shouldn't be a surprise because this happened in December of 2015, just after the election. So he submitted his case with his witnesses, and each witness relied on their statements. And then he rested, I think it was on Wednesday, and yesterday we had Lauren Batiste. Lauren did not give evidence in chief, and that's not a problem. You don't have to, as long as you have enough people to give evidence. So the general remarks for the petitioners submitting their evidence by way of witnesses is that I became very concerned, and I think most people should be concerned too, that because the petitioners were not specific in their, what they call the pleadings, what the public will take as very important matters cannot be raised. And that comes even more critical now that the respondents, the witnesses for the respondents are in the box. You have a situation where Senior Counsel Mendez and Astafan jumping up like jacks in the boxes, pleading or objecting to things that, oh, it was not pleaded, Your Worship, it was not pleaded. I'll go into that a little bit more, but let me come back to the petitioner's case. So, for example, the retired or former supervisor of elections boasted that she, although it was a new job to her because she was an educator before, she was not entirely ignorant to what was expected of her, and more than that, because she's an avid reader, she went and read everything, and she availed herself to the mentorship of about 3 or so former supervisors of election, and so she knew quite a bit. She felt comfortable in the position, and, you know, thought that she did a good job. However, today, I was so disappointed, I could have cried. When Queen's Counsel Stanley John tried to put to her and ask her whether she felt the conduct of the returning officer, Gaines, was, you know, the way he dealt with the ballots, whether that conduct was in compliance with the rules. And of course, the other side jumped up and said, no, can't ask that. And the judge actually stops the Queen's Counsel John by saying, no, you did not plead that. What I understand from listening to it, we pleaded the defect of the ballots. I think we pleaded too the counts in the ballot boxes. We also pleaded the defect of the ballot boxes, you know, they were plastic and not wooden and so on. But we did not say specifically that the conduct of the supervisor of elections causes concern. So we can't raise that at all. There was also a part where we could not even ask her how she interpreted the law, depending on some of the things she did. Even though she said that she was aware of the various rules and regulations that cover elections. Now, so that is the supervisor of the election. She has to come back on Monday because Keith Scotland, who represents Lauren Batiste, the lead counsel of Lauren Batiste's case, he was not there today. and he made some arrangements that he will finish what he couldn't do today on Monday or sometime next week. The other highlight was the witnesses themselves. And I'll tell you something about Maya, because Maya had to take the witness stand again yesterday to clarify what was happening in the videotape that...
You mean Maya Eustace, okay?
Yes, Maya Eustace. They called her to verify what was happening in that videotape that Ben submitted as evidence of him protesting the count and the returning officer's declaration that Louis Straker won that vote. In it, it was clear, I mean, it wasn't very audible in many places, but towards the end, it was very clear that Maya was protesting the integrity of the process. And the question from the other side was, Maya was responding in that way to Games, who said that nobody protested there and then the quality of the votes. So I believe that is left to the judge now to decide what is happening there. Now, I know I really don't want to make this thing too long, but let me talk to you about my other concerns. Is that it seemed to me that everything our side asked for by way of application or submission, that means you're asking the judge to consider certain things in order to change the course of questioning of the other side. We hardly got any of it. Hardly. That is of some concern. So you have the thing about our side. When I say our, it is not NDP or BED. It's about anybody who has a problem with this election and its results. So those of us who oppose what's happening right now, whenever there's something, a question comes up that is so clearly relevant, it can't be submitted. They can't answer it because it wasn't pleaded. And the other point is that they are focusing a lot on numbers. The vote, how many votes? Like today, the question came up about 76% of the electorate, legible voters voted. Now, I know of stories where, and I have no scientific evidence of this, whenever there is an incumbent government administration and people fed up with them, they come out in their droves. So to make that case that because 76% of the voters turned out to vote makes our claim that the process was not free and fair, because it's so high a vote, you must have complaints. That is how they reduce it. You have to expect complaints. But they're not looking at the kind of complaints which could affect the quality of the process. Can an ordinary person sit in that room today and listen to what was going on and say we had a free and fair election? I don't think so. We only, apart from Mrs. Finley Scrubs, there was one other witness, and that witness was Sylvester King, who came there as somebody to maybe speak to the process. And I really don't know why he came along, because in his statement, he made mention about a time lag of the votes coming in from Central Leeward. Yet he couldn't tell what time they came in, whether it was before midnight or after midnight. Almost all his answers, apart from his name, he didn't recall. And that to me shows something. My other point for concern is the fight to make sure that we do not get to an inspection of those ballots. What is in it to hide? We could not even get Mrs. Finley to say that she was concerned about the complaints to the point that she would want to have an investigation. She more or less admitted that yes, she heard about the complaints and especially the OAS report where they claimed there was bias and impartiality, but she didn't think it was necessary for her to investigate because the OAS did not say that there was any evidence of fraud. And Queen's Counsel John jumped on it and said, yes, they did say that. But how long did they stay at the center, meaning how long did they make those observations to decide whether or not there was fraud? So next week, we're at it again. We're going to have Ben, I'm sure, will be going back maybe to answer to his, he added another bit of his statement. We're definitely going to have Mrs. Phyllis Scrub back. They're not going to have Sylvester. And I'm not sure who else they have to give evidence. But the way it's going, win or lose in terms of declaring the results valid or invalid, it's an extremely valuable exercise, and I would urge Vincentians to come there, not only to learn about the legal process and the shenanigans and courtroom antics, but most importantly, to learn how not to conduct elections. We need to be more aware of our rights, how a ballot should look, what the returning officer and presiding officer, clerks and agents should do. The agents especially, on both sides, should be there to know what their responsibilities are, because these are the questions that are coming out in all of this process. And it gives people a lot of concern that we were too laissez-faire. And I'm not throwing blame, but I'm saying on both sides. You know, both sides. Some people weren't even keeping accurate records, even though they knew that they should have kept records. But then the evidence is you really didn't do that. So can we now rely on your tally sheets?
Okay. Did it come out in the petition case that Miss Finley Scrub, did she admit that the boxes that you spoke about were inadequate for, and and also the ballots? Did they allow it?
Yes, yes. I wouldn't use the word inadequate. She said yes, that the boxes were plastic and they were introduced before she got there, but that they were used internationally. She also admitted to the fact that because they were plastic, you couldn't lock them with lock and key, as you would expect them to be, to do if they were wooden boxes. She also admitted that no keys were there, because if they were wooden boxes, you lock it, and there's a controlled chain possession of the key. But there was no key with that. She admits to that. The ballots, yes, she admitted that in some cases the stamp and the what do you call it? The
foil?
The
stamp
and the stamp and the signature were not in the right place. But she only had evidence of maybe 5 or so of those. Not enough to cause her alarm.
And finally, their witnesses. I'm surprised, well, I should ask you, if they would be bringing in any more witnesses, especially the returning officer down there, who I know as Mr. Robertson, and a lady who was Miss Jeffers, who was very prominent in the elections down there. They were not asked to come to the stand to give
No,
witness?
not yet, because they're not finished. They just started.
Oh, because I said, you said they only brought Mr. King.
No.
So I thought that was the end.
No. They started today with Mrs. Well, not today. Yesterday with Mrs. Finley Scrub. Continued today, and they had Sylvester King. But you have to be guided. The respondents. There's a list of respondents on the sheet, you know, the court thing, those people have to appear. And they're sitting there, the Jeffers and I think Robinson too.
And what about Mr. Gaines?
I understand he will be submitting himself to the court via Skype. I don't know. That's what I understand. I don't know. I never did ask.
Well, can I ask you a layman question now? Can you put your place in a layman because you're
was it too? No. Was it really?
No. Can I ask you a question that I will prefer to ask a layman?
Okay.
How are you feeling? Not as a lawyer. I want you to take yourself for the shell of a lawyer and possibly as an activist also. Can you tell me how you feel about
how I feel
about everything that's going on?
I feel vindicated when I say we cannot rely on the courtroom to resolve our issues. We have to hit the streets. I've been consistent with that. Allow the lawyers and whoever else are interested in the courtroom with all the restrictions of what was pleaded and what not pleaded. And I'm glad you asked that. Judges often look at the response. There's hardly anybody out of the courtroom. For example, there should have been a crowd outside waiting with placards and so on. And because maybe Luzette King did with she placard, there is not even one. And I believe that's why they move it from the courthouse. You understand what I'm saying?
They put it in a bourgeois setting.
So from the activist, oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was so angry when a dreadlocked witness came in. Don't remember his name now.
Yeah, from North Windward.
From North Windward. Yeah. Came in speaking the lingo from Caratal. I think he's from Caratal. And Mendes couldn't understand naturally, but there's some Tobagonians me can't understand neither. Yeah. And he reached to Queen's Counsel to help translate. Much to the laughter of people on both sides. That to me is exclusive. The bourgeois people them inside there and the little people, if you're going there, they laugh at you. Not only that, you had Astafan mocking the man, yes. Literally mocking the man. Now, thankfully, that witness was very, very strong, and he stood his ground. There was another witness, Miss Sutherland, who was very scared to come. They had to subpoena her. She arrived. She said she was scared. But when the woman got on the stand, you must never underestimate ordinary people, eh? She was poised, and she was answering a question, and when she didn't know, she sought clarification. Yeah. Are you saying this, saying that? And there's another one who they tried to tie up. Now, something came up there that was cultural. Brian, if I come to you and say, how are you so short? How are you so short? How are you so short? In Vincentian lingo, you're going to turn back and say to me, we're singing that song before. Right. He could not get them to understand that this, I think one of the workers for the ULP side was singing about, well, talking about the finger and so on and so on. And the cross question was she singing as in singing and saying something? And the man saying, yes. When you sing something, you say something. And that to me was a cultural difference. Right. And that's why I'm saying, let we not rely on the court too much to get rid of these people. And you notice I've gone away from the legal thing now. Yes. Vincentians, we have to make sure that we apply social pressure, social and political pressure on this regime that's holding us hostage and won't let us go.
Thank you very much again, Luzette. I don't know what we'll do without you, really and truly. And I know you don't like these kudos and so. Really thank you for, because when I called in 1 second you were here ready to do this.
And Brian, the reason why I don't like the kudos, it's not of any benefit or satisfaction to me that there are more of me.
Okay. Thank you very much, Luzette.